Hello, Rob from Van Compass here, and today we're going to show you what we've come up with to be able to lift the new 2020 all-wheel drive Ford Transits. Now in our last video, we showed you kind of the major hurdles that we encounter when it comes to lifting these unibody vans. And in our last video, if you go back and look at it, you'll see we discussed the issues with lifting it in the traditional sense, which some of the cheaper lift kits do by just bolting like a 2-inch strut spacer up on top of the coil spring, up on top of the strut assembly, and overextending the suspension down an additional 2 inches. That kind of works on the rear-wheel drive vans, even though it still overextends control arm bushings. It runs the sway bar links into the lower control arm. All your operating angles are now maxed out because you're overextending everything really badly. But with the new all-wheel drive setup, now you have a front CV shaft to worry about. And in our last video, we showed you that this CV binded up pretty bad at full droop plus 1 inch. So to solve that and to lift the van, we ended up doing a new kind of way of lifting this setup. It's instead of our subframe drop spacer kit that we use on the rear wheel drive vans, what we did instead is we developed a new coil spring. So this coil spring retains the factory spring rate, so you get the same nice cush ride that the factory spring had, but now it's also an additional 1-inch lift spring. So we got 1 inch of lift out of that. With that though comes camber issues. So to address the camber issue, on top of the strut now we bolted a 3/4 inch strut spacer. Now this has built-in camber correction in it, so that with it lifted, now the front tires aren't going to have positive camber, which would happen if you just bolt like a 2-inch spacer on top of the strut assembly and extend everything down and not address anything, because these vans don't have any camber correction ability in them. So 3/4 inch spacer. So all we really are at right now, we're at full droop plus 3/4 inch. At that setting, at that lift height, the factory CV is happy. So that's what is installed in this van right now. And so we're at just full droop plus 3/4 inch, but this is an 1 3/4 lift kit because it has a 1-inch lift spring on it. So you can see everything still rotates fine. There's no notchy points. You still have all your steering. Everything's happy. This is a really good solution. Our control arm bushings, they're not overextended. They don't have metal on metal contact. This rear bushing is a horizontally mounted bushing with a vertical bolt, so it has a limit on its travel. Let me get a light down in here. So you can see that, like I said, I was talking about earlier, there's some cheaper lift kits on the market that just bolt a strut spacer on top and they don't address this control arm bushing, and what happens is the metal lip of this bushing ends up smashing into the suspension subframe. Our lift kit doesn't do that. Even our subframe drop kit doesn't do that because we drop the subframe and we keep the control arm bushings neutral, how they were supposed to be, so you don't encounter stuff like that. But with this setup, we're able to get 1 3/4 inch lift, super easy install. Subframes in the factory location. You're not messing with the diff, exhaust, steering shaft extension, none of that. You don't have to lower brake lines. It's a super easy install, and it's very cost effective too. We're going to be able to offer this kit for, I think it's going to be $1,000, right? But that's going to include a Bilstein B6 strut. So the benefit of including the Bilstein B6 strut with this setup is, well, there's multiple benefits. One benefit is the Bilstein B6 rides way better than the factory strut does. So you get a massive improvement in ride quality right there. The other benefit of running the B6 is, if you notice where this coil perch is welded onto the strut body, on the Bilstein B6, this coil perch is actually welded on. It's about 5/8 of an inch higher. So you got another 1/2 inch of lift there. So with the 3/4 inch lift, with the 3/4 inch strut spacer that has the camber correction built in, the 1-inch lift spring that we make, and a Bilstein B6 gets you the other 1/2 inch. Now you got a true 2-inch lift kit with a simple bolt-in strut replacement. Again, super simple install, camber correction built in. It's just win-win. You get a great improvement in ride quality. And then the other benefit too is because we're doing a 1-inch coil lift, now you're riding it 1 inch higher in your suspension travel, so you get a little bit more ground clearance on the center differential, and you lose a little bit of down travel. You're losing 1 inch of down travel. You still have the same amount of wheel travel. It's just riding higher in the suspension travel, but only by 1 inch. So you're not just going to be lifting tire constantly. It's still going to have plenty of down travel to keep tires on the ground. What else? We're making 2 coils for these vans. This is our factory rig coil for light vans that aren't going to be, you know, it's just a simple moto van or it's a passenger van that you're not going to be built out as a big heavy camper. We're going to recommend this blue coil. We have another coil, a red coil, that is about a 10% spring rate increase for heavy camper vans. So if you're running at GVW or near GVW or you're a big dually, you're going to want to run that spring because that gives you a little spring rate increase. It gives you the same 1 inch of lift, and all the benefits that we just talked about here will apply to the red spring as well. That's kind of the extent
rear
of what we're doing on the front of the van. We'll go look at the rear now. So the rear kit, we've been doing this lift kit since 2015. This is our 2-inch, we call it our transit terrain kit for the rear wheel drive kit vans. Same exact principle works on the all-wheel drive. Nothing's really different here. So what we do to lift the rear, 2-inch lift block. This is the simplest way we do it. 2-inch lift block. Now we have options to not use a lift block, and instead we make a 5-leaf progressive mini pack that complements the factory spring pack. That also gets you 2 inches of lift, but also gets you a spring rate increase. So again, for heavy built out camper vans, looking for that real good, that nice improvement in ride quality, would recommend going with that route over, say, just the lift block if you're willing to spend a little extra money to do that. So lift block to lift it. Because we're lifting it like that, we need to address the bump stop spacing because the axle has now moved down 2 inches. It's critical that the bump stop also moves down 2 inches so that the leaf spring itself isn't going overly negative when it goes to full compression. Again, so there's cheaper lifts on the market that don't address this, and this is a critical factor if you want your springs to last for the life of your van. Bump stop drop bracket. This gets you 2 inches of lift. To go to like get a little bit extra lift out of it, 2.5 in the rear. Again, some of these vans end up being really heavy. They carry most of the weight on the rear. So we also have the option of an additional coil. This is an additional longer shackle, and this nets another 1/2 inch of lift in the rear, and also improves kind of the way the rear springs cycle. Having the longer shackle lets it cycle a little better, lets it not bind up quite as bad. It actually smooths out the ride just a touch. That's the basic lift kit. What's cool about our system and everything we try to do at Van Compass, we try to do everything a little modular so you can kind of upgrade as you go. So for guys who are planning to like kind of go off-road a lot and sort of push these vans to what their limits of what they can do, we also offer a bracket to be able to get some more ground clearance under the rear of the van. So this is our shock relocation bracket. It gets you about another, I think it's 1.5 inches of ground clearance here. Super simple bolt-on solution. It's hard to even tell like what we did here, but we cut, the stock shock bracket hangs down another 1.5 inches here, and the bolt usually goes in right here. But when you use our lift kit, we can, because of the bump stop spacing and how all the measurements work out, we're able to move the shock bracket, the shock up, the lower mounting point up, so that now the lowest point of the rear axle is the center of the diff. It's not your shock brackets. So again, super simple solution. And then you probably also noticed our tuned Fox reservoir shocks on the back of this van. Again, for people looking for a ride quality improvement, This is really what we recommend, kind of step one if you want these things to ride great. Like, talk to us, give us weights on your van, tell us what you're doing with the van. And we've been doing this for a long time, tuning shocks and getting them to ride super nice. So this is kind of the most bitchin' setup we do, which is the external reservoir with the low speed compression adjuster on it. And it looks super cool, a really great product. And that's sort of the extent of the suspension upgrades that we're doing on this new all-wheel drive van. If you want more information, just check out our website. We make tons of other parts for the Transit, and we're working on more stuff for them all the time. We're making a new rear bumper for it, with dual swing outs. We got a front hitch prototype over there, new winch mounts, tons of stuff for the Transit. So go to our website at vancompass.com, and thank you for watching.